What made this game truly shocking wasn't just that Shohei Ohtani hit his 14th leadoff home run of the season, it was the timing. In his very first at-bat after returning from a knee issue, Ohtani wasted no time reminding everyone why he's one of the most feared hitters in baseball. Just a day earlier, he had exited a game because of inflammation in his left knee, and the following day, he was held out of the starting lineup. Although an MRI revealed no structural damage, questions about his condition remained. Then came his first trip to the plate. Facing a 94.2 mph fastball up in the zone, Ohtani launched a towering drive into the right field seats. The ball left his bat at 109.6 mph and traveled 409 feet, leaving absolutely no doubt. It wasn't just another home run, it was a statement. What stands out most to me isn't even the homer itself, but the circumstances behind it. Most players coming off a knee issue subconsciously make adjustments, even if they don't realize it. High fastballs are especially difficult to drive if your lower body isn't fully supporting your swing, yet Ohtani looked completely unaffected. In fact, that 109.6 mph exit velocity suggested he was feeling stronger than ever. And remember, this was his first at-bat back. Pitchers often challenge a returning player early, hopping to test where he's at physically. Ohtani saw his opportunity and didn't miss it. More than a home run, it was proof that any concern about his health wasn't impacting his swing. For the Dodgers, the blast carried enormous significance. From an opponent's perspective, it had to be one of the most frustrating home runs imaginable. Deep down, the opposing team was probably hoping the knee issue would limit him, even slightly. But the moment Ohtani stepped into the box, the atmosphere changed. Then he crushed a high fastball into the seats. The instant that ball left the bat, the mood in the opposing dugout likely shifted. What made it even more impressive was Ohtani's reaction. He started walking before the ball landed, fully confident in the result. That level of certainty says everything. What impressed me most was the build-up leading into the game. Dodgers manager Dave Roberts insisted Ohtani was ready to go, but until the first pitch is thrown, nobody truly knows how a player will respond after an injury scare. Ohtani erased every doubt with one swing, and he did it in the most dramatic way possible, a leadoff home run that had to energize the entire clubhouse. The Dodgers were coming off a loss, and the team needed a spark. Within minutes of the game starting, Ohtani provided one. This wasn't simply his 14th homer of the year. It restored confidence, momentum, and belief throughout the lineup. While the leadoff blast grabbed the headlines, another part of Ohtani's performance deserves just as much attention: his ability to get on base. After the home run in the first inning, he followed it up with walks in both the second and fourth innings. That extended his on-base streak to 9 consecutive plate appearances, dating back to his previous game. In recent years, Ohtani's home runs have understandably dominated the conversation, but this game showcased something equally dangerous: his combination of power and discipline. In many ways, that's even scarier than the home run itself. Power hitters go through hot streaks and cold streaks. Home runs can come and go, but consistently getting on base is a sign of stability and elite plate discipline. After hitting the homer, Ohtani never became overly aggressive. Instead of chasing another big swing, he remained patient, recognized pitches out of the zone, and gladly took his walks. For pitchers, that's a nightmare. Normally, after surrendering a home run, a pitcher's priority becomes avoiding another extra base hit. They become more cautious, but Ohtani understands that adjustment. Rather than forcing the action, he lets the pitcher come to him. As a result, the walks pile up. In a sense, he's using the opponent's strategy against them. That's why the quality of his at-bats stands out even more than the streak itself. Many sluggers become eager after hitting a home run. They want another one. Ohtani is doing the opposite. If pitchers refuse to challenge him, he's happy to take first base. That balance makes him incredibly difficult to contain. Pitch around him, and he reaches base, throws strikes, and he can send the ball into the stands. Either way, the pitcher loses. Historically, some of the game's greatest hitters were actually more intimidating when their on-base percentage was soaring than when their batting average was peaking. A high on-base percentage reflects confidence, patience, and complete control of the strike zone. Right now, Ohtani appears to be operating at exactly that level. The numbers support it. Entering the game, he carried a batting average above .300 and an OPS over .950. After adding a home run and multiple walks, those numbers only continued to climb. Walks may not generate headlines, but they are incredibly valuable. A player who can contribute even when he doesn't get a hit creates scoring opportunities every night. And Ohtani is doing both. He's hitting for power and getting on base at an elite rate. That combination represents the most dangerous version of a hitter. Adding to the concern for opponents is the fact that June has historically been Ohtani's best month. Based on what we're seeing now, it doesn't look like he's approaching one of his signature hot streaks. It looks like he's already in the middle of one. Another fascinating storyline from the game was the reaction from the opposing dugout, particularly the expression on Munetaka Murakami's face. Before the game, Murakami appeared relaxed and smiling. But after watching Ohtani crush that 94.2 mph fastball into the right field seats, he could only respond with a knowing grin. That reaction may have revealed more than any statistic ever could. Professional athletes rarely show their emotions during competition. They respect great players, but they typically keep those feelings hidden. Yet every so often, they witness something so extraordinary that they can't help but react. This felt like one of those moments. The pitch wasn't a mistake hanging over the middle of the plate. It was elevated and challenging. Many hitters would have fouled it off or gotten jammed. Ohtani turned it into a 409-foot missile, and he did it in his first at-bat back. From the dugout, the reaction was probably simple. Here we go again. Murakami understands better than most how difficult that swing was. Driving a high fastball to the opposite field with that kind of authority is extraordinarily hard. Doing it while returning from a knee issue makes it even more remarkable. Sometimes opponents are left with no choice but to laugh, not because it's funny, but because they recognize greatness when they see it. That's why reactions from players often reveal more than reactions from fans or media. Fans celebrate, commentators praise, but fellow professionals understand the degree of difficulty involved. Murakami's expressions seem to carry both disbelief and respect, and that's what made the moment memorable. Ohtani is already producing at a high level as both a hitter and a pitcher. He remains among the league leaders offensively while continuing to contribute on the mound. Then he returns from a knee scare and immediately launches a leadoff home run. From an opponent's perspective, that has to feel impossible to prepare for. Perhaps that's why the grin from the opposing dugout resonated so strongly. It symbolized something bigger than one swing. It reflected the psychological impact Ohtani has on everyone around the game. And when you consider his history in June, the timing becomes even more significant. Ohtani has built a reputation for catching fire during this month. He won June Player of the Month honors in both 2021 and 2023, and his career June home run total entering this season ranked among the best monthly stretches of his career. Now, despite missing time because of knee inflammation, he returns and immediately delivers another statement performance. That's why I don't view this as merely his 14th home run. I see it as a sign. A sign that another dominant summer stretch may already be underway. Year after year, Ohtani seems to elevate his game as the season progresses. Now he has homered in consecutive games, continued reaching base at an elite rate, maintained a batting average above .300, and kept an OPS north of .950, all while handling responsibilities as a two-way player. If this performance is any indication, the rest of the league may be facing the most dangerous version of Shohei Ohtani yet. What makes this even more remarkable is that Ohtani is producing at this level despite recently dealing with concerns about his left knee. For most hitters, even a minor physical issue can throw off timing and mechanics. A slight hesitation in the lower body is often enough to disrupt an entire swing. But with Ohtani, there was none of that. If anything, his swing looked even sharper than before. That's why I see this home run as more than just his 14th of the season. To me, it feels like the signal that June Ohtani has officially arrived. As a hitter, this is the version of Ohtani that would scare me the most. There are plenty of ways for a player to get hot, but the most dangerous hitters are the ones who start producing without changing anything about their approach. Right now, Ohtani is doing exactly that. He's not relying solely on home runs. He's taking walks, collecting hits, and adjusting to whatever pitchers throw at him. No matter how opponents attack him, he seems to have an answer. What makes it even more intimidating is his track record. Every year, Ohtani seems to elevate his game in June. Pitchers know that. They study the numbers, they see the trends, and just when they start thinking, here comes another Ohtani hot streak, he proves them right. That's why this home run felt so significant. It turned a bad feeling into reality for the opposing team. I also think about the impact it had on the Dodgers as a whole. The day before, the club suffered a tough loss and even had to remove key players early. The atmosphere surrounding the team wasn't exactly positive. Then, in the very first inning of the next game, Ohtani launches a leadoff homer and instantly changes everything. The value of that swing goes far beyond the statistics. It changed the energy inside the stadium, the dugout, and the clubhouse. And when you look ahead, the outlook becomes even more exciting. Ohtani is maintaining elite numbers as a hitter while also performing like an ace on the mound. If he continues producing home runs while pitching at a high level, that becomes a nightmare scenario for the rest of the league. That's why I view this 14th home run not as a peak, but as a starting point. If his home run pace accelerates from here, I honestly wouldn't be surprised at all. Of course, the bigger conversation revolves around Ohtani's health. During the Pirates series, he exited the game because of inflammation in his surgically repaired left knee. Fortunately, MRI results showed no significant damage, and manager Dave Roberts expressed confidence that the issue was not serious. Roberts even suggested that if it had been late in the season, Ohtani likely would have played through it. Still, some former players and analysts have argued that because Ohtani is such a unique athlete, the Dodgers need to be extra cautious. Personally, I think they're right. The MRI results were encouraging, and the reports regarding his range of motion were positive. But from a pitcher's perspective, the knee is the foundation of everything. Every pitch, every swing, every explosive movement starts from the lower body. Ohtani isn't just any player. He's throwing close to 100 mph while also serving as one of baseball's most dangerous hitters. The physical demands on his body are extraordinary, and this wasn't just any knee issue. It involved a knee that had previously undergone surgery. That's why this can't simply be treated as a problem that disappears once the pain fades. In fact, the Dodgers' decision to rest him tells you everything. The organization clearly prioritized long-term risk management over short-term results. Their goal isn't winning one game. Their goal is surviving 162 games and making a deep postseason run. Viewed through that lens, giving Ohtani a day off was the obvious decision. As a hitter, I'll tell you something interesting. Sometimes players are actually most vulnerable when they're playing well. When the results are there, athletes often convince themselves they can keep pushing through anything. But the body can send warning signs that aren't immediately visible. And Ohtani isn't a normal superstar. He's trying to hit home runs one day and throw triple-digit fastballs the next. There are almost no historical comparisons for a player like that. That's why traditional standards simply don't apply. The argument for caution makes perfect sense. The benefit of rushing him back a week early is tiny compared to the benefit of having him healthy a month from now. What impressed me most was how calm and disciplined the Dodgers were throughout the process. In previous eras, star players were often expected to play through discomfort. Today's Dodgers seem to think differently. They don't just view Ohtani as a player, they view him as one of the franchise's most valuable assets. That perspective allows them to make smarter decisions, and perhaps the most encouraging sign is that Ohtani himself appears willing to accept those decisions. Earlier in his career, he might have pushed to stay on the field no matter what, but now he seems focused on the bigger picture. That's why I don't see this brief absence as a setback. I see it as an investment in finishing the season healthy, continuing his two-way journey, and helping the Dodgers pursue a championship. There's also a growing debate about workload management. Some voices around baseball believe that preserving Ohtani's health should take priority over everything else this season. Given that this is his first full two-way campaign in years, the balance between short-term production and long-term durability has never been more important. And honestly, there's no perfect answer. From a pitcher's perspective, what matters most isn't how you feel today, it's how you'll feel a month or two from now. Every player deals with soreness and fatigue throughout a season. But Ohtani's situation is unique because he carries the workload of both a star hitter and a frontline pitcher. Even if this knee inflammation proves minor, it may still serve as a reminder to continuously evaluate how he's being managed. Adjusting his schedule, limiting unnecessary stress, and strategically choosing recovery days could make a huge difference during the second half of the season. Because if the Dodgers are thinking about October, caution today could pay massive dividends later. The reality is that competitors like Ohtani always want to play. They want to hit. They want to pitch. If they feel even slightly better, they believe they can go. That's why the organization has to protect the player from himself at times. The Dodgers are in a strong position. They don't need to force him onto the field every single day. In fact, keeping Ohtani healthy may be the single greatest contribution he can make to the team's championship hopes. And that brings us to the latest development. After missing his third game of the season because of the knee issue, Ohtani returned to the starting lineup after just one day. Before the game, he completed approximately 15 minutes of throwing, including breaking balls and splitters, while carefully evaluating how his knee responded. He also went through base-running drills to test his movement. However, Dave Roberts made one thing very clear: Ohtani would not be stealing bases. In other words, he was healthy enough to hit, but the Dodgers still wanted to limit unnecessary stress on the knee. I think that was an excellent decision. Many fans focus on the home runs, but when you consider Ohtani's role as a pitcher, protecting his lower body becomes absolutely critical. Stealing bases isn't just about speed. It involves explosive starts, sudden acceleration, aggressive cuts, and hard slides, movements that place tremendous strain on the knees. Being able to throw comfortably doesn't automatically mean those movements are risk-free. That's likely why Roberts targeted stolen bases first when discussing restrictions. And with Ohtani scheduled to pitch against Tampa Bay on June 17, the reasoning becomes even more obvious. For the Dodgers, Ohtani's value extends far beyond his bat. He's also one of the team's most important starting pitchers. If limiting stolen base attempts for a few days helps ensure he takes the mound at full strength, the trade-off is more than worth it. What's fascinating is how different the management strategy becomes when dealing with a player like Ohtani. For most athletes, the decision is simple: either play or rest. For Ohtani, there's a third option: let him hit. Let him impact the game offensively, but temporarily remove the highest-risk activities. That level of detail reflects how carefully the Dodgers are approaching his workload. And based on everything we've seen so far, the plan appears to be working. What stood out most about the Dodgers' handling of the situation was the level of detail involved in Ohtani's recovery process. It wasn't just about whether he could play, it was about determining exactly how much he could safely do. That's why the pregame workout was so important. The Dodgers didn't stop at a simple throwing session. Ohtani went through base-running drills as well, allowing the medical staff and coaching staff to evaluate how his knee responded to different baseball movements. After gathering all that information, they reached a clear conclusion: hitting was fine, but stolen bases would remain restricted. That distinction tells you a lot about how carefully the organization is managing him. Handling a two-way superstar is incredibly complicated. Every decision affects both his role as a hitter and his role as a pitcher. But based on what we've seen so far, the Dodgers appear to be approaching the situation with patience, data, and long-term planning rather than emotion. If Ohtani takes the mound against the Rays as scheduled and continues performing at a high level, this entire sequence may ultimately be viewed as an example of elite risk management. The conversation becomes even more fascinating when we consider where Ohtani currently is in his career. Traditionally, baseball players reach their peak around age 30. Ohtani himself delivered one of the greatest offensive seasons in modern history during his age 30 campaign in 2024, posting a .315 batting average, 54 home runs, 59 stolen bases, and an OPS over 1. This season, while he remains one of baseball's elite hitters, his offensive numbers haven't quite matched those historic levels. Yet something unusual is happening. As a pitcher, Ohtani may actually be better than ever. He has maintained an ERA under 1, a WHIP below 0.8, and some of the most dominant pitching metrics of his career. That naturally raises an interesting question. How can a player appear to be slightly declining as a hitter while simultaneously reaching a new level as a pitcher? The answer may lie in the fundamental differences between hitting and pitching. Hitting is largely a reaction-based skill. Major league hitters have only fractions of a second to identify a pitch, process its movement, and decide whether to swing. Even the smallest decline in reaction time or visual processing can affect production. We've seen this throughout baseball history. Legendary hitters such as Albert Pujols and Miguel Cabrera eventually experienced offensive decline as they entered their 30s. The margins at the major league level are simply that small. Pitching, however, follows a different path. While physical ability certainly matters, pitchers can continue improving through experience, strategy, sequencing, and understanding hitters. Veterans often compensate for minor declines in velocity by becoming smarter and more efficient. Look at pitchers who remained dominant deep into their careers. Many evolved from power throwers into master tacticians. Ohtani appears to be following a similar path, but with one major difference. He hasn't lost the power. His velocity remains elite, but now it's paired with years of accumulated knowledge and experience. That combination is extremely dangerous. That's why it wouldn't be surprising if Ohtani is still approaching his peak as a pitcher, even if his offensive numbers eventually settle slightly below their historic highs. From a hitter's perspective, the difference is easy to understand. Hitting can be cruel. The fastball you tracked perfectly at age 29 may become just a little harder to recognize at age 32. That tiny difference can dramatically impact performance. Pitching often works the opposite way. A veteran pitcher learns how to exploit weaknesses, manipulate timing, and sequence pitches more effectively than ever before. Ohtani is beginning to show those traits. His arsenal has become increasingly sophisticated, featuring a devastating sweeper, an elite splitter, and a well-developed curveball. Compared to earlier stages of his career, he simply has more weapons. That's why many evaluators believe the current version of Ohtani is a more complete pitcher than the one who dominated in previous seasons. The key point is that a hitter's peak and a pitcher's peak don't necessarily arrive at the same time. In fact, Ohtani may be entering one of the rarest phases imaginable, slightly transitioning as a hitter while simultaneously approaching the highest level of his pitching career. Another fascinating statistic has fueled recent discussion. Ohtani's average swing speed has gradually decreased over the last few seasons. It measured approximately 77 mph in 2023, dropped to 76 mph in 2024, and now sits around 75 mph. At first glance, some observers immediately point to agging, but the reality may be much more complicated. Because despite that decline in swing speed, Ohtani continues producing elite offensive numbers, maintaining a batting average near .300 and an OPS above .900. So how do we explain the apparent contradiction? The answer is that hitting is about far more than raw bat speed. Swing speed is important, but it isn't the only factor that determines offensive success. Ohtani may be sacrificing a small amount of pure bat speed while improving other aspects of his game. His pitch selection appears more refined. His contact quality remains exceptional. His understanding of situational hitting continues to improve. And perhaps most importantly, he has become increasingly efficient. If genuine decline were taking place, we'd likely see it reflected first in batting average, on-base percentage, and overall offensive production. Instead, those numbers remain among the best in the league. That suggests adaptation rather than deterioration. Instead of relying purely on physical dominance, Ohtani may be evolving into a more complete hitter. Many veteran players go through a similar transition. Early in their careers, they rely heavily on athleticism and raw talent. Later, they combine those gifts with experience, discipline, and a deeper understanding of opposing pitchers. The result is often a more efficient offensive player. From a hitter's perspective, evaluating someone solely through swing speed can be misleading. Many players experience slight declines in bat speed while actually becoming better hitters overall. The reason is simple. Experience teaches them which pitches to attack and which pitches to ignore. That knowledge creates consistency. And right now, Ohtani appears to be benefiting from exactly that process. He isn't simply trying to hit every ball 500 feet. He's taking what pitchers give him. He's using the entire field. He's hitting for average. He's drawing walks, and he's still producing power. Those are the traits of a complete hitter rather than a pure slugger. Opposing pitchers certainly don't seem concerned about a 1 mile/hour drop in swing speed. What they care about are the results. When they see a hitter carrying a batting average near .300 and an OPS above .900, they continue approaching him with maximum caution. The way pitchers attack Ohtani today shows exactly how much respect he still commands throughout the league. If anything, his reputation remains as intimidating as ever. And when you factor in the demands of two-way play, his achievements become even more extraordinary. Think about it. He's taking the mound every 5th or 6th day, maintaining elite pitching numbers, striking out hitters at a remarkable rate, and then returning to the lineup to perform as one of baseball's best offensive players. That's not normal. In fact, it's something the sport has rarely, if ever, witnessed. Which is why, when evaluating Ohtani's future, the slight decline in swing speed feels far less important than the bigger picture. The bigger picture is that he continues delivering elite results on both sides of the game. And as long as that remains true, the rest of baseball will continue facing the same problem they've faced for years. How do you stop a player who keeps finding new ways to evolve?